Hi guys, Kelly here, and today I wanted to share with you my March book haul. And it started out, I had just gotten the order from Book Outlet and I thought that was going to be it, but then one of the local libraries ended up having a book sale, and you know, everything's like 20, 25, 50 cents, so I had to go, and I did end up picking up quite a few books there, you know, probably spent a total of $4 and got, I don't know, 10 books or 12 books, I don't know. So I'll share those with you today. So first we'll start with my Book Outlet books. And the first one is The Fairies Return by Gail, Carson, Levine. I've gotten really into reading all of her books and collecting them. And this one is a collection of short stories. So I think it's just like 6 kind of stories about princesses and fairy tales kind of thing. So I'm excited to read that. And then I got 2 books that I've already read, but I want to start collecting, which are Cinder and Fairest by Marissa Meyer for the Lunar Chronicles. And so this is the first book and then the prequel kind of thing, but you usually read it, I think, at least I read it before winter when I read it the first time, and just as they come on Book Outlet, I'm slowly collecting them so that I can get the paperback versions. And then the next one is, I usually don't buy hardback books new, but I bought More Than We Can Tell by Bridgid, Kemmerer, and the reason I bought this in a hardback was that the other book I have by her, Letters of the Lost, which is a companion novel to this, is also a hardback, so I figure I might as well have the books by the same author matching, so it wouldn't be like a paperback next to a hardback. So might as well get the hardback of this one. And this actually, since it's a companion, in Letters to the Lost, our main character had a best friend that we were following, and that's who is the main character in this one. And I think this is going to be pretty, kind of like a cute romance, but with hard-hitting issues, because that's what Letters of the Lost was. So I don't really know much about it, because I just knew I loved the character Rev in Letters of the Lost, and if it was about him, I was going to read it. I know that he is adopted, so, and like, I remember from the first book that relationship with him and his mom was really good, so I'm excited that will probably be part of it, because it sounds like he's also going to be getting a letter or something from his birth father, so there'll be some connection between his birth parents and his adopted parents. So I'm excited to read that one. And the next one is All American Boys by Jason Reynolds and Brendan Kiely. And I've heard several people talk about this and say it's excellent. It is a book about police brutality, and it's taken from the perspective of 2 teenage boys. One is black and one is white, and one is the victim of the police brutality and the other one is a witness, and kind of like their differing stories. And I've just heard it's like really like heartbreaking but really important, so I would like to check that out soon. And the next one I've actually never heard of, but I've heard of the author, and that is Glory O'Brien's History of the Future by A.S. King. I have a couple booktubers I watch, both BooksandLala and Merphy Napier have both read a few books by A.S. King. I think that A.S. King is like Kayla from BooksandLala's favorite author, and I've never read anything by A.S. King. So when this popped up on Book Outlet, I was like, well, I'll give it a try. And a lot of the books, I think it's a woman, A.S. King, but a lot of her books are surrealism or things like that involved, and this one seemed to be the least weird when I was reading the description, so I thought that'd be a good place to start. So from the description, it sounds like this girl, Glory, suddenly gets the ability to see the past and the future of anybody else and kind of what she does with that knowledge. So sounds like a fun ride. And then I have a few thrillers, because, you know, it's not a Book Outlet shopping experience for me if I don't end up buying thrillers, even though I've got plenty of thrillers, but I always have to have more. And the first one is Odd Child Out by Gilly Macmillan, and this is actually a second book in a detective series. I don't know if you actually have to read them in order, because a lot of times those detective series you don't really have to, but I know the first book in this is available on Scribd, so I might still read it in order. But this was only like $2, so I figured I had to have it. And I don't really know what it's about at all. I just know it's like a detective, murder, crime book kind of thing. But I've heard of that author and heard a lot of people say good things, so I just wanted to try one of her books. And the next one is The Walls by Hollie Overton, and I didn't know much about this book when I bought it, but I got it because I want to start like reading more books by authors I have enjoyed, and I really liked Hollie Overton's last book I read, which, what was it called? Baby Doll? Yeah, Baby Doll. And I thought it was a really good thriller, really unique. So I figured I would pick this one up, and from what I can tell, it sounds like it could be about domestic violence and murder and like a woman protecting her child. So it could be interesting. It gets really good ratings, so I'm hoping that it'll be good because I really liked Hollie's other book. And then the last one was Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. And I had heard this floating around on BookTubes, and it gets mixed reviews. Some people say it's great, some people say that it isn't, and some people think it's just middle of the road. So I had put it on my TBR and was like, well, maybe I'll get it from the library. But then I noticed the movie cover, and I usually am not somebody that buys movie covers, but I actually thought the movie cover was pretty compared to the like original cover. So I was like, well, for a few dollars, I'll pick it up and I'll give it a try. All I know about this is that the main character, I think she has amnesia, and her husband is trying to like feed her information about her past life, but then she's like wondering if she should trust him because of whatever this, I think this man is like a psychologist or something like that. And maybe leads her to believe that maybe her husband is not telling the whole truth. I don't know. I'm interested to read it. So that's all of my book outlet books. And then I have my library haul books. And we'll start off with, I had just recently done a vlog. And if you had seen that, I mentioned that I got some Christopher Pike books. Because Christopher Pike is an author that did like teen horror and thriller books in the 90s. And I used to read his books like obsessively in middle school and early high school, and I hadn't read one of his books in forever. And then this past weekend I read one, and I just really enjoyed it. I found it a lot of fun, so I thought, well, maybe I'll pick some up from the book sale because they were 20 cents a piece. So I don't know anything about these. They're either horror or thriller, and they're 90s teen books. They could be horrible, but for 20 cents I'll give it a try. They take like less than a day to read, like a few hours, because they're only like 200 pages each. So they could just be like candy, you know, give me a little like entertainment. So I got Gimme a Kiss and Spellbound and Whisper of Death. The last one is The Lost Mind. And I just have to say, like, these covers for these books, like, even if I didn't read these specific books, all of his covers have that vibe that brings me right back to middle school. So it just, if nothing else, it'll give me a fun nostalgia feeling, and so I'm excited to have only paid 20 cents for each of those. Because it's actually hard to find them now, because they used to be like everywhere in used bookstores, but now, you know, it's been almost 30 years, so they're not like out as much like in used bookstores, so happy to have them. And then the next one is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. Am I saying that right? He's the one that wrote The Kite Runner, and I haven't read that either, but I've heard really good things about his books, and they're historical fiction. This one is about Afghanistan. Don't really know much else other than very popular author, so when it's a library sale and they're like 20-25 cents, I'm just going to pick up anything that looks good. The next one is Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler, and I picked this up because, once again, Kayla from BooksandLala has mentioned this as one of her favorite books that, like, most other people hate, but she loves it, and so I thought this is the best time to try it if it's something I'm going to end up hating if I don't agree with her, and because it's really cheap. But the thing is, when I picked it up, I didn't realize this book had, like, pictures and stuff, and it is heavy. Like, the way it's on really heavy paper, and there's these nice drawings every once in a while, but the book weighs a ton, so we'll see if I can actually like read that without like my arm breaking. And the next one is Everwild by Neal Shusterman. This is the second book in the Skinjacker trilogy, and when I saw this, it kind of made me laugh because actually I'm planning on reading the first book in the Skinjacker trilogy like next week. Like that was already kind of one of my plans. So now I'll have the second one if I want to continue. And then I got Let It Snow, which has 3 different authors. This is a YA Christmas holiday, you know, short story collection. I had always heard people talk about this around the holidays, and I never thought I was going to buy it. I just thought, well, around Christmas time, maybe I'll get it from the library. But since it was super cheap, now I have it for next Christmas, and if I don't like it, it can go back to the library. And then I got The Sweet Far Thing by Libba Bray. I have read the first 2 books in this trilogy. What is this trilogy called? I can't remember. But, oh, it's called the Gemma Doyle trilogy. It's just named after the main character. And it's a Victorian historical book, fiction book. It's YA, and I've read the first two, Rebel Angels and A Great and Terrible Beauty, and I gave them like middle reviews. I think they were both 3 stars for me, and so I've been planning on like just getting the last one from the library, but this way I'll just have it. It's huge, so I can just take my time, finally get through it, and see how the series ends. The next one I was kind of surprised to have found because it's a newer book. Like all the other ones are kind of older. But I found The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, which just came out last year, I believe. This is a fantasy book, and I don't really know much else about it because everybody like kind of describes it in different ways. I believe it's about a girl who kind of goes into a different world, and some people love it, some people hate it, but I figure for how cheap, I'm going to give it a try since it's a new book and it's in great condition. And it doesn't even have like the library stuff on it, so I'm assuming it was donated to the library and then they put it in their sale. The next one was a recommendation from a friend of mine, Jen from the Book Refuge, and that's East by Edith Pitot. She talks about this book a lot. It's a retelling of the folktale East of the Sun, West of the Moon. I've never actually even read that folktale, but the way Jen talks about it, she makes it sound like it's really good, so I figure I'll pick it up and try it now that I have it. And then the last one is Ever by Gail, Carson, Levine. I actually don't know what the topic of this book is, but like I said earlier, I'm pretty much buying everything I see of Gail, Carson, Levine because I've just enjoyed everything she's written so far, so I don't really care what it's about, but it looks like it probably will have some kind of romance since there's both a boy and a girl on the cover, which is great because I like her ones that are maybe a little more towards the teen and involve a little bit of romance. So those are all my books. I didn't actually count them because for those of you that see my hauls before, I always donate $1 for each book that I receive or purchase and give it to a education-based charity. So I'll count these up and send my money off to my charity of choice. I saved the charity till the end of I usually talk about it at the beginning of the video. I saved it till the end because normally I talk about a charity that you could also donate to if you wanted. But this time, since I got so many of these at a library sale, I've decided to donate the money to our library because it's good to support your local library. We use it all the time. And my library specifically, or actually not my library in my town, but like a neighboring town, it does a cool thing called Story Walk where they like have linked up with the local park and they have like this boardwalk that the park owns and they put up a story along the way on these big placards and you can walk it with your kids. They change the story a few times a year and you can read the story as you walk. I think it's really cool, so I wanted to donate towards that project because they say that, you know, it costs a lot of money to print those stories out to put on there. So I figure I would give the money for these books to my local library. So if you feel so moved to donate to your own library, that's great, but I'm not going to link a charity down below since it is just my local library. And that's it for today. If you've read any of these and want to tell me something that I should prioritize, I'd love to hear from you down below. Thanks. Bye.